I don't believe that the situation will be resolved just by bombing or military operations. This is the clear point Emmanuel Macron is making. While the world is once again heading towards a division into two sides, as if returning to the Cold War era, a new movement is slowly emerging. A large coalition of countries that do not want to choose between the two superpowers. From Seoul to Paris, a new force is beginning to form on the global stage. At this point, Macron put Donald Trump in a difficult situation with two important moves. But before we continue, please like this video. It means a lot to us content creators. Thank you very much. The first is in the Strait of Hormuz. Macron accomplished something that Trump couldn't do, even with the full strength of the military. And that was done without firing a single shot. The second move has an even deeper impact. It has the potential to change the balance of power in the entire world. Through a manifesto, Macron called on the middle powers to unite under a European-led alliance. Its goal is to form a third force that is not dependent on China or the United States. This is where the bigger conflict between Macron and Trump begins, from the Strait of Hormuz to the Asia-Pacific. By April 2026, the Strait of Hormuz is no longer just a simple route for oil shipments. It has become a place where two different leadership perspectives are being tested. On one side, there is a military blockade and a strong American presence. On the other side, there is a diplomatic approach being pushed by Europe. Instead of easing the tension, it has become even more dangerous, and what will happen next is uncertain. In the middle of this situation, Macron's European plan came into play. It's a plan not based on military strength, but on strategy and diplomacy. According to him, there is a reason. Europe is becoming a more attractive partner because it is simpler, more modern, and above all, predictable. In a world full of sudden changes, being predictable becomes a big advantage. On the morning of April 3, 2026, a large cargo ship named Creeby, flying the Maltese flag and owned by the French company CMAC GM, entered the dangerous waters of the Strait of Hormuz. This incident caused fear. It was recorded as the first Western vessel to pass through the strait after tensions escalated with Iran. At first glance, it seemed like just a simple passage of a ship, but upon closer examination, it was clear that this was a major challenge to Donald Trump's position in the region. It showed that Emmanuel Macron could protect his country's interests without relying on America's plan or on American military support. Behind the safe passage of the ship, there was a deeper game of diplomacy carried out by France at the United Nations Security Council. On April 2, 2026, the Trump administration, together with its Arab allies, tried to establish a legal basis for their military operations. They issued a draft resolution that would allow the use of force in the Strait of Hormuz by all necessary means. But in an unexpected move, France allied with Russia and China to veto the resolution. While Trump was facing a military stalemate, Macron found a new way to act. At this point, what happened in the Strait of Hormuz can be considered a diplomatic victory for Macron against Trump. But his actions did not end there. The biggest move happened on April 3, 2026, when he stood on stage in Seoul and delivered a deeper message against Washington's unpredictable policies. According to him, they do not want to rely on China's domination, and they also do not want to be overly exposed to the uncertain actions of the United States. He didn't just offer an idea, he presented a concrete alternative for countries that don't want to choose between the two superpowers. A new direction for middle powers against Donald Trump's style of leadership, which is based on strength and quick decisions. At this point, it's clear why there's room for deeper cooperation between South Korea and France. If they both carry this kind of agenda and include other countries in Europe along with Canada, Japan, India, Brazil, and Australia, a third path is gradually being formed, a direction for countries that don't want to rely on China and also don't want to automatically side with the United States. These words may sound like a calm statement, but In reality, it's a strong criticism of the views of Donald Trump's administration, as if the world only has two choices, whether you're an ally or an enemy. Although this idea is rooted in history, the plan now is bigger and more ambitious. In 1961, Joseph Broz Tito of Yugoslavia, Jawaharlal Nehru of India, and Gamal Abdel Nasser of Egypt founded the Non-Aligned Movement. Its goal was to unite countries that did not want to choose between the two superpowers during the Cold War. But in reality, this approach became passive. Most of the member countries had limited economic power, so they were easily influenced by the superpowers. Emmanuel Macron is now pushing for a different model. This is not simple neutrality. This means taking an active stand and building a system against the excessive influence of powerful countries. And the countries he wants to include are not just ordinary ones. Japan is one of the strongest economies in the world and a leader in advanced technology. South Korea, on the other hand, is a center for semiconductors. Semiconductor production is critical in the global supply chain. India has its own nuclear capability and a huge population that reaches over 1 billion. Australia is important in the supply of critical minerals and in security in the Pacific region. These are not small countries. These are powerful countries that can change the course of the world. And according to Emmanuel Macron, it's time for them to take the lead against the two big countries. In 1961, the United States and the Soviet Union considered this kind of idea dangerous. Because if the middle powers act independently, the superpowers' control over the world will be broken and they will lose their monopoly on influence. Now it's clear that Emmanuel Macron understands the frustration of many countries, especially because of the tariff threats and security pressure from Donald Trump. That's why his call is not just for neutrality. He is encouraging these countries to actively take a stand and be able to push back against both sides. During his Asian tour, Macron clearly demonstrated this strategy. It's like a carefully woven plan that he gradually lays out in every country he visits. On April 1, 2026, during his visit to Japan, he made statements that seemed gentle, but in reality it was a direct criticism of Trump's foreign policy, a style of leadership that can change at any time, even just through social media. According to Macron, Europe may be slower compared to other regions, but it has one thing to be proud of. That is being predictable. You know where they stand, and in the world of capital, technology, and business, they don't like uncertain situations. Here, Macron positions Europe as a reliable and consistent partner. Amid the chaotic moves of Washington, he offers Paris as a safe and stable option, simpler, quieter, but a more reliable ally. This can also be seen in his position on Iran. In front of the cameras, he clearly described the difference in their perspectives. According to him, the Iranian regime is bad. There's no argument about that. But he doesn't believe that the situation can be fixed just by bombing or military operations. He mentioned what happened in Iraq, Afghanistan, and Libya. After 20 years, it still hasn't happened. The result of this kind of approach wasn't good. For Macron, this is clear proof that the use of force has its limits. At this point, it's as if he's dismantling the long-held belief of the West that military intervention is the solution to everything, and the difference between the two leaders becomes even clearer. On one side, there's a strategy focused on strength and pressure. On the other side, there's an approach based on stability, diplomacy, and long-term planning. Here you can see just how wide the gap is between their leadership perspectives. Emmanuel Macron's strategy is not just a simple move away from the unpredictable politics of Washington. It is also about building a concrete system that can stand up to China's economic dominance. The first step in this plan was taken in Tokyo before his speech in Seoul. The agreement between Japan and France signed between March 31 and April 1, 2026, is not just a simple agreement. It has a deeper meaning. It focuses on rare earth elements that are important in modern technology and the defense industry. Without these, the production of advanced electronics and systems used around the world would stop. Currently, China controls 70% of the global production of raw minerals and 90% of refined products. This means that Beijing has the ability to halt the high-tech production of other countries in a very short period of time. This is where the actions of France and Japan come in. Their goal is to break this level of control and reduce dependence on a single country. Through the Comag refinery project in France, which is expected to be operational before the end of 2026, Japan will have the capability to obtain 20% of its required heavy rare earth elements from a new source. For Roland Lescour, the message is clear. You can no longer rely on a single country, especially China. This is not just a simple business decision. This is a clear declaration of strategic independence at a time when the economy is becoming a weapon. Because of China's previous export restrictions against Japan, this agreement is becoming important as a lifeline for their industry. But its impact goes even deeper. This isn't just about China, but also about its relationship with the United States. Countries like Japan and South Korea have long been caught in the middle of a difficult situation. They rely on America for security while depending on China for their economy. It's a delicate balance they've been carrying for a long time. And this has become even more difficult because of the approach of Donald Trump's administration toward its allies. It's as if they have to pay for protection, which puts them in an even more precarious position between the two partners. In this situation, it becomes even clearer why these countries are looking for a new direction. A path where they don't have to choose between two powerful forces. A path that gives them control over their own future. While Washington uses its military presence as a bargaining chip, China uses the supply chain as a weapon. In the midst of these two, a new direction emerges as an alternative, a third path for countries that have long been searching for an alternative, a direction that is stable and reliable, not dependent on the unpredictable decisions of Donald Trump, and not tied to the control of China. It started with rare earth elements, but now it is expanding to artificial intelligence, space, nuclear energy, and defense. This shows that it's no longer enough for America to intimidate its allies to keep them aligned with it. It also needs to show respect and consistency. When you put together all of Macron's actions, a clear message gradually emerges. It's a message that's uncomfortable for Washington. America's foreign policy is no longer being rejected by its enemies, but by its own allies. And this is not just Macron's personal opinion. Even the civil leadership and military command of France are aligned in this position against America's strategy. The fact that there are high-ranking officials from a NATO ally openly questioning Washington's policy in the Middle East shows just how deep the loss of trust within the alliance has become. The veto exercised by France at the United Nations Security Council became a clear symbol of this. By engaging with Russia and China, it removed the legal basis that the Trump administration was seeking for the use of force in the Strait of Hormuz. In an instant, the dynamics of alliances changed, and the previously clear lines of allegiance became more complicated. Washington's usual solution of using military buildup faced a strong obstacle, an obstacle not built by the enemy but by its own ally. This may remind us of what happened before the Iraq War in 2003, but the situation now is even deeper. This is no longer an isolated opposition. It is now a structural change in the way countries view power and alliances. In 2003, the opposition was focused only on a particular operation. But now in 2026, it is the very way the United States uses its power that is being questioned. The meaning of power is changing. While Donald Trump's administration tries to control the world through sanctions, aircraft carriers, and tariffs, Emmanuel Macron is taking a different approach. Instead of force, he is building a stronger and more lasting network through diplomacy and geoeconomic strategy. He is showing that there is an alternative to Washington's old view that if you're not an ally, you're an enemy. But this path is not easy either. Countries like Japan and South Korea cannot easily break away from their security ties with America, especially while the threat from a nuclear-capable North Korea remains. Nevertheless, the uncertainty caused by Trump's actions is gradually pushing these countries to move closer to Macron's vision. This is already evident in market movements. According to data from Polymarket, there is a 72% chance that Trump will call Macron before the end of the month to fix the situation. This shows that the belief that the world needs America in the same way as before is slowly fading. And France's move has put serious pressure inside the White House. Now, the question is more fundamental. Is this just a temporary warning to Trump or the beginning of a permanent change in the global system? For now, there are signs that this is not just a simple event. There is a deeper change happening. First, this kind of move is not new to France. This is part of their long-standing belief in strategic autonomy. This dates back to the time of Charles de Gaulle, who withdrew from NATO's military structure in 1966 and was followed by Jacques Chirac, who opposed America's policy in 2003. But there is one big difference now. Macron is not alone. He is trying to give this idea a more organized and durable form through a coalition that stretches from Japan to India, a group of countries that have a significant share in the global economy and can change the course of the world. Second, these measures are supported by concrete economic realities. The agreement on rare earth elements and the diversification of supply chains worth billions of dollars are not just political statements. These cannot be reversed just based on the changing decisions of leaders. These are long-term policies of countries. Third, and perhaps most important, the right timing is crucial. The crisis in Iran showed how weak the policies based solely on the strength and force of Donald Trump's administration are. The situation in the Strait of Hormuz became a clear symbol of this. While European ships continue trading through diplomacy, ships relying on the protection of America's powerful fleets are stuck in a blockade. Here, a new reality can be seen. Military strength alone is not enough to ensure the security of trade routes. And one important detail becomes even clearer. America's own allies are choosing to take the safer route based on diplomacy, not on Washington's military power. This shows how much the perspective has changed among countries that used to be solidly aligned with America. In the next step, Emmanuel Macron will likely bring this idea to a bigger stage. It is possible that this will be presented at the G7 summit scheduled for June 2026. If that happens, the Trump administration may face a deeper challenge from its own allies, even within the institutions they themselves built and have long led. And if we look back at the events, April 3, 2026 might be remembered as an important day in history, a day that signaled the end of an era and the beginning of a new era in the balance of power in the world. That morning, a French cargo ship quietly passed through the Strait of Hormuz, a simple move achieved through diplomacy, what America's powerful aircraft carriers could not accomplish by force. And that afternoon from Asia, Macron delivered his message to the world, a clear statement that they would no longer accept it, becoming subservient to the two superpowers. Passing through the Strait of Hormuz became the symbol of the problem, and the manifesto he laid out served as the direction for the new world. The agreement on rare earth elements served as the foundation. Meanwhile, the veto in the United Nations Security Council became the legal protection for the entire plan. Combined, these steps show how weak the old model of the United States was. Where we lead, you follow, which has existed for 80 years. Under the leadership of Donald Trump, this has gradually disappeared. This is no longer a world controlled by a single direction. Simply showing strength is no longer enough to maintain influence. Unlike the passive, non-aligned movement in 1961, what we are seeing now is an active challenge against both the United States and China. And more importantly, the countries leading this are not weak. These are countries with nuclear weapons, capabilities in artificial intelligence, and strong economies. Now, the question is no longer whether change is happening. The question is how deep it will be and how long it will last. Only time will tell if the careful and elegant diplomacy of Emmanuel Macron will result in a new world order. But one thing is already clear. The world where middle powers simply follow Washington's every move is slowly disappearing. They are now choosing to chart their own course, build their own system, and ensure their own protection. And in that process, a new balance of power is being formed in the world, a world that America is not used to facing. Now, in the midst of this change, one question remains. What do you think about this new game of diplomacy, where America's influence is waning and the middle powers are beginning to forge their own path? And if we continue to follow this direction, there is another quiet change that is not immediately noticed. The shift of the battle from action to influence. Before, the question was, who had more ships? Who had a stronger presence? But now, it's becoming more important who can convince others more? Who can show more stability? Who can provide direction that doesn't change? And this is where what Macron is doing becomes critical. He doesn't control the sea, but little by little, he's gaining the trust of other countries. And when a country starts to trust another system, its actions change. It will no longer simply follow its former ally. It won't rush into a fight anymore. It will choose the safer option. Now let's think about the effect of this in the long run. If this approach continues, it's possible that the world will no longer follow a single direction. It won't just be the US or China. There will be a third one. And when that happens, every decision will become more complicated. There will be more thinking, more balancing, and less rushing to take sides. At first glance, it seems more chaotic. But if you look deeper, this could actually reduce sudden conflicts. Because if there is no single dominant power, there won't be anyone who can be easily followed. And when there's no one easy to follow, everyone becomes more cautious. Now, there's another effect we should look at. The changing meaning of an ally. Before, it was clear there were allies and there were enemies. But now, there are countries that are allies in one aspect, but not in everything. They could be economic partners, but not military allies. They might agree on trade, but not on strategy. And this is the new reality, more flexible, less certain. But each country has more control. And in this kind of setup, the countries that know how to balance become stronger. Not the strongest, but the ones who know how to adjust the most. In the end, we go back to the same question. In a world that's no longer simple, who truly has control? The one with the most powerful weapons, or the one who can change the direction of others? Because of what's happening now, the answer is slowly becoming clear. That true power isn't measured by strength alone, but by the influence you can build even without a fight. And as this kind of movement grows, it becomes clearer that the old ways are no longer enough. It's not just strength that's needed anymore, but trust and consistency. And in every country that learns to stand on its own, the course of the game slowly changes. Gradually, but surely, the direction of the world is shifting. And that's where you'll see who can handle what happens next.